Chad Hasty Show News Talk, 95.1 FM, 790 AM, KFYO. Thank you for tuning in this morning. We go to the phones. Our final visit of the year with Matt Mackowiak, Republican strategist. Matt, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, Chad. Good morning.
I bet you're doing your Steelers had a good night, so I bet you're very excited.
We had a good win after 3 miserable consecutive losses. So yes, it was a good day yesterday.
Let's see. We'll start off with the possible government shutdown. This is something that the president has said that he's ready to take credit for. That Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are urging the president and Republicans not to shut down the government. I had Congressman Arrington on last week, and paraphrasing him, he said, while a government shutdown is not ideal, he would actually back the president on a government shutdown over border wall spending or border wall funding. What are your thoughts on a possible government shutdown, and are we even going to see one?
Yeah, so I've kind of, unfortunately, conflicting thoughts on this. I think from a substantive standpoint, the president's position is reasonable and actually kind of responsible in a way because, at some point we have to do something about border security. He's got $1.6 billion last year and the year before. It's going to be $25 billion to build the entire border wall along the urban areas. And even he has now come off, a full border wall across the entire border, including in the rural areas, including in the middle of the mountain and the rivers. He's now basically, positioned himself as only really being willing to do it in the urban areas, which is, I think, where there's the greatest consensus. So from a substantive standpoint, I think his position is appropriate. I think the other thing you have to consider, though, is the politics of this and leverage. And he does understand leverage as a business person. He's shown that in some of the trade negotiations that have occurred over the first 2 years. And unfortunately, he's playing a weak hand. And his hand gets weaker every single minute of every day because on January 3rd, the Democrats take the House back. And they're not going to be passing, a massive increase in border wall funding while the Democrats hold the House. They're just not going to do that. Their base wouldn't allow it. And so what's going to happen, if, let's say he doesn't agree to whatever passes up on the Hill, if they get anything passed this week, what's going to happen is Pelosi's going to pass a clean continuing resolution on January 3rd and get it sent over to the Senate and say, Leader McConnell, it's your move. And so now we're not talking about a full government shutdown. We're talking about a quarter of the federal government that would get shut down. I think Justice, Homeland Security, a couple other agencies, and essential staff continue to work, but you won't have everyone. You won't have everything. So I guess, Chad, my point is the time for this fight was not the week of Christmas. In fact, that was a signal to me that they were going to cave. Maybe they wanted to use, people wanted to be home for Christmas as a point of leverage or point of pressure. But look, the president faces a decision this week. Does he want to, basically stick to his guns on this? He has talked about using the military as another way to build the border wall. I don't know what the legality of that is, and I don't know what the funding structure for that is. Basically, where they are is they're divided between Trump's request of $5 billion, which the House Republicans are basically in favor of, and probably $1.6 billion, which he's gotten in past years. So that's where they are. Presumably there'd be a way to maybe split it in half and get the deal done and let everyone have Christmas off. I think it's very uncertain where this is headed. But again, from a leverage standpoint, he's playing a weak hand that gets weaker every day as we get closer to January 3rd.
If government funding runs out on the 21st, I guess they could have if they're worried about the Christmas deadline, they could have a weekend shutdown, right?
Sure. And generally when you have shutdowns, it only lasts a few days, right? Yeah. And generally it hurts the party that's in power. And this is another challenge the Republicans face, is that they remain in power until January 3rd. Now, a spending bill, to keep the government open would require 60 votes in the Senate. And this is the other challenge, is, House Republicans may pass a bill in the next couple days, that'll have $5 billion in there. But if it doesn't have 60 votes in the Senate, it can't pass the Senate. So then the Senate maybe changes it, makes their own. Look, the whole leverage question changes if the government is shut down, right? Because it will consume the news. It'll affect the markets. It'll affect, the political environment and job approval for a lot of these major figures in our national government. So generally, you only have it for a few days. What is also unusual here is the president has basically said, go ahead, if the government shuts down, I will take responsibility for it. Generally, there's a blame game between, whoever's in the majority and whoever's in the minority. You'll remember what was that a year ago or so when Schumer basically shut the government down in something that was fairly self-defeating, and ultimately he caved after a couple days. So, look, we don't really know where this is headed, but and there are some decisions that have to be made. It's actually not even clear that the $5 billion bill could pass the House. Even though right now, even the Republicans have a majority, there are a number of members who were defeated or retiring members who apparently aren't showing up to vote. They didn't show up last week. So there are some math problems no matter how you look at this, and I don't know where it's headed. My guess is if the government shuts down, it'll only be for a couple days, but they still probably do have a way to avoid it if everybody wants to avoid it.
Yeah. Let's see. Looking ahead to 2019, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit because I didn't warn you in advance that I was going to do this. But do you have any predictions as far as what the national landscape is going to look like in 2019, and even if you want to comment on any expectations for the upcoming legislative session? Just what's your outlook for 2019?
Yeah, let's talk nationally first, and then I'll go to the state stuff. So nationally, there are some big questions about the economy, particularly as maybe the global markets appear to be slowing down. There's quite a bit of debate about the strength of the American economy and the strength of the stock market. That's going to be one thing to watch. I think on Wednesday you'll see the Fed likely raise interest rates, probably for the last time for several months. So that'll be one thing to watch. I think another thing to watch is the issue of health care. Right, with Obamacare being struck down by a district judge in Texas on Friday, there's going to be a big political fight up on Capitol Hill, really beginning probably in early January, with Democrats trying to protect pre-existing conditions and basically trying to make Republicans sort of swallow that politically. You're going to see investigations, obviously. We don't know where all those are headed. I think I saw an AP story with a lead just a couple of days ago that said every aspect of Donald Trump's life is now under investigation. Yeah. Every organization he's ever been a part of is under investigation. I think most people can probably agree that that's a bit of a overstepping. So, look, nationally, I think we're looking at a highly partisan, divided political environment up on Capitol Hill, and President Trump's White House is going to be really under siege for the next 2 years. Of course, all this is happening amid a re-election in 2020. State level, this legislative session is going to be about property tax reform and school finance. Those two issues are going to crowd out a lot of other things. They're going to consume a lot of time. They're very complex. I do believe there's an emergency consensus on both issues. A special session may be required to do one or both of those issues. But basically, the state leaders recognize that they have to do something about it. They've tried too many times before and not succeeded, and that there's real pressure from average people that are seeing their property taxes go up 10, 15%, in an individual year. And it's not even just an urban or suburban problem. It's a statewide problem. So I think that's a big issue. Those are two big issues to watch at the state level for 2019.
Yeah, very nice. Matt, we always appreciate you and appreciate you joining us here this year. Hope you have a Merry Christmas, and we'll visit with you again in January.
Thanks, Chad. Have a great holiday. Appreciate it.
You too. That's Matt Mackowiak. He'll join us again in 2019.